This video will contain spoilers to the following movies.
All we need to do now is connect these wires, and...
Joaquin, you almost
oh
done?
my gosh. Ugh, the wires are all tangled up now. Thanks a lot, Sarah.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to frighten you while you were working.
You're a bit late for that.
Joaquin, I was on my way to warn you that the Starkiller base is getting closer to our planet.
Oh, why didn't you tell me this before?
The ego. I was going to, until you crossed up the wires, you swat.
The wires were tangled when you bursted in and scared the crap out of me.
Look, we're about to lose our planet if we don't hurry up and fix the wires.
How can I get the wires all back? Heh.
Just do it for me, will you, egomaniac?
Of course, my dear, for you.
You ever watch a movie, you're invested in the plot and how the world is developed, or maybe you're not, but still, there's a romantic moment between the protagonist and some other character that you either didn't see coming or don't follow through with? That's happened to me a few times, and I think it's time I give that topic some attention. I've been thinking about it for a little while, but I felt more motivated to do so thanks to Chicken Little. If you grew up watching this movie like I did, you probably also look back to it time and time again as an adult and coming to the realization that it's not as good as you thought it was. Anyway, this is one of the major issues. During the climax, Chicken Little and Abby share a kiss in the theater for literally no reason. If you were following the events that happened before then, you'd understand that the two were just friends. There was no romantic chemistry between them at all, and then all of a sudden they share a romantic moment that was just shoehorned in at the last minute. Maybe if they developed a relationship throughout the first two acts, then had them kiss at that moment, it would probably work a little better, but it still wouldn't save the film at all. Get Smart is another example. Like with Chicken Little, Maxwell Smart and Agent 99 don't share any romantic chemistry, but they kiss during the climax before they go to disable that bomb. This one works a little better. Well, it still doesn't work, but the film itself was still decent. Because Agent 99 was one of those love interest characters that doesn't care for the protagonist, but the two get together at the end, so that seemed a little predictable, but very underdeveloped at the same time. Would you believe that filmmakers are still this tasteless? Yeah, even in the 90s, filmmakers didn't understand how to properly execute romance, like in the animated film Cat Stoked Dads. Danny has the main focus of becoming a Hollywood star, but he also has this side objective of earning the appreciation of Sawyer. At first, she's not interested in him, but at the end of the film, they're together. Yeah, it's one of those movies. Why even bother with it? Does it really serve much relevance to the message or even the overall plot? It certainly doesn't, but it's one of the cliches in this film that in my eyes makes it not an underrated classic like many people would say. And no, I didn't say I hate it. Let's look to a more positive example, like Nightmare Before Christmas, a classic stop-motion film about Jack Skellington learning to be content with what he has after trying to take Santa's place as the gift bearer for the year. Then at the last minute of the film, before the credits roll, Jack and Sally share a romantic song together. This wasn't completely out of nowhere, but the only sign is after Jack leaves to deliver the spooky gifts, Sally sings about how worried she is for his well-being and confesses to herself her affections to him, even doubting if they'd be together. Well, Disney, do we really need that plot point? Does it enhance the story in any way? Not much. I'm sure that there are some issues with the film, even though it's a great one, but this is one of them. If you want to look for famous romantic chemistries that don't work very well, one that you'll find very commonly is between Anakin and Padme in Attack of the Clones. Yeah, the romance is for the story. The whole idea is that if Anakin's the father of Luke and Leia, then we'd have to know who the mother was. But the way it was executed was not very well done, mainly due to the chemistry between Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman. It might also have to do with the terrible lines of dialogue. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. What were they thinking with that one? I could definitely understand Hayden Christensen winning the Razzie for Worst Supporting Actor, though to be fair I wouldn't say it's his fault. A lot of it has to do with how poor the writing for the prequel trilogy is, which affects Christensen's performance because it's hard to develop a real character out of what little he was given. Besides, he did get better in Revenge of the Sith. People seem a little mixed about whether Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones is better. I can understand either argument equally, but between both movies, I would say Attack of the Clones. But what about romance that just doesn't make any sense no matter which angle you're looking at it from? Sure, I've already mentioned Chicken Little, but let's list another example. Kangaroo Jack. Ugh, never thought I'd talk about this one again, but this just has to be said. Charlie's in the desert experiencing mirages and sees Jessie out in the distance. He gets close and grabs her breasts, then she knocks him out. Then he wakes up after an eerie scene, and she's acting as though he wasn't groping her. To make matters worse, in the scene where the two bathe in the river, turns out she was playing hard to get. Okay. How about just be hard to get after what he did to you? There was literally no reason for there to be a romance between them, especially with how they first met and... Oh man, I can't talk about that movie. One of the major themes of the Harry Potter series is on love, whether it be in the books or the movies. But the major difference between the two mediums in terms of love would be with Ron and Hermione. In the books, Hermione starts SPEW, or Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, and Ron makes fun of her for it. Then during the Battle of Hogwarts, Ron is matured and said they should free the elves working in Hogwarts Castle instead of having them fight and possibly die for their masters. That's why Hermione kissed him there. He was more mature and understanding. In the movies, Hermione was not as socially active, so the kiss between her and Ron seemed a bit too sudden. It's odd that it was like that in the final cut, because wasn't the author of the novel, J.K. Rowling, one of the producers of Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2? Couldn't she have spoken up and said, this doesn't feel right considering the rest of the movies? Sure, she wasn't involved in any of the other movies, aside from the fact that they're all based on her books, but she surely had to have watched them all before she started her work on Deathly Hallows. This sort of deal with romance is not always a bad thing. Take Gremlins, for instance. The relationship between Billy and Kate is not the main focus, but it's easy to follow because we also get to connect with Kate as a character, especially with the scene where she explains why she hates Christmas. That speech in particular was open to much controversy because it seemed vague whether it was supposed to be funny or sad. Executives wanted the speech left out, but director Joe Dante refused because it represented the film as a whole, a combination of chills and laughs. I totally agree, because even though it was traumatizing that Kate's father broke his neck trying to go down the chimney dressed as Santa Claus on Christmas Day, it also has a small comedic edge because you wouldn't think that anyone in their right minds would try to do that. In short, Dante made the right call in leaving the scene in. What does this have to do with the relationship between Billy and Kate? Well, her character is better established and made the relationship stronger. Chitty Chitty Bag Bag. This one's interesting. Dick Van Dyke plays his inventor who buys and repairs a former race car for his children. They go for a ride in it, they have this wacky adventure accompanied by a woman named Truly Scrumptious. The car flies and can be used as a bow. A lot of things happen in the movie. Then at the end, Dick Van Dyke and Truly Scrumptious get married after Lord Scrumptious buys the inventor's Toot Sweets and renames them Woof Sweets, which earns Dick Van Dyke a lot of money. Whoa! That's amazing, especially after that fantastical adventure with the flying car that could also be a boat. Finally, let's observe Little Shop of Horrors. The original film from 1960, directed by Roger Corman, sets forward some kind of romance between Seymour and Audrey, which would even be carried over in the stage show, and of course in 1986, Frank Oz version. But in Corman's original work, you can't really buy it. It's just placed there as a subplot that doesn't really have anything to do with the main focus, which is Seymour feeding corpses to this giant plant to keep the business alive. The stage show cleans that up, and so does the Oz version, by fleshing out Audrey, making her more relatable. She's a troubled girl whose boyfriend is abusive. That is what gives Seymour the motivation to kill the dentist. It was not just to get his hands on Audrey, but also because Orrin was sadistic, especially toward his girlfriend. About a week after Orrin's death, which was only known to Seymour, the two share a song that comforts Audrey, who at the moment felt guilty for Orrin's disappearance. This is one of the many reasons the Oz film is a rare instance of the remake being better than the original. And that's all I can really list. It's hard to properly incorporate romance into a film if that's not what you're focusing on. The way the characters behave and the environment around them changes makes a huge difference as to whether or not you should do it. But for the most part, inserting romance into a story where that's not what you're mainly focusing on is not something you should do unless you're delicate about it. Is there any more examples of improper romance in film that I haven't mentioned? Let me know in the comments.